how I think how I think the point center, point forward has influenced today's NBA. You know, terms like point center and point forward are new terminology, so to speak, in terms of NBA and basketball reference in general. Um, we all know that from a center position you play in the paint. Power forward is played primarily in the paint. Well, in the current NBA, these guys who were traditionally playing in the paint, the front court, are now playing in the perimeter, and even in a lot of cases, even facilitating the offense of the team. Getting guys involved, setting players up um, from the perimeter and in the post. But when you think of these kind of names, point center, point forward, names that obviously come to mind when we talk about point centers, Nikola Jokic, right? 6'10", 6'11", um, plays like a big man. He's a great rebounder, has great post moves, can go and do work down low in the paint. But at the same time, he can do work on the perimeter. He can shoot the three ball, as we've seen, at a high percentage. He can facilitate, get you know his teammates involved, get assists from the perimeter. He can bring the ball up. He's a solid enough ball handler to bring the ball up. You know, dribble, get guys involved. So this is all you're getting from your traditional center, right? This is what you know. There's really hasn't been. He Nikola Jokic is probably the first guy that we can really he coined that phrase point center, and it really applies to a T. Point center. Um, you know, from a point forward position, a guy who I think has made a Hall of Fame career um, as this kind of role. Point forward is some guys who kind of been doing that in recent years, but somebody who's done that very well is Draymond Green. You know, he gets, he facilitates a lot of the offense secondary to um, Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry is the best playmaker on the Warriors, second to Draymond. you know, Draymond does a great job of getting his teammates involved. He's averaged around 6 to 7 assists per game throughout his career for the most part. And, as a starting kind of player around that. Um, that's what Draymond does great. That's what makes him one of the things that make him a unique player. Obviously, he's great on the defensive end, but his ability to get his teammates involved and be a good playmaker, great at setting screens to get his teammates open. Um, not necessarily the great offensive threat scorer as in Nikola Jokic. Can't doesn't have that. He's not at that dynamic of a scorer, but obviously when talking about and even facilitate, I think Nikola Jokic does that a bit better too. But nonetheless, not trying to down anybody, whatever. But you know he does a great job facilitating the offense from that traditional power forward sense. And there's other guys we can talk about, who, you know, um, kind of like at this point forward, Zion, he in a lot of ways is, you know, plays that point forward role. He can obviously score in the post, you know, but he can, play from the perimeter. He can score, get his get his bucket, drive, whatever he has to do from the perimeter, and he can facilitate. Kind of hard, not that great. That's not really, but he does. He can facilitate from the perimeter. Um, Jason Tatum is another guy that comes to mind. He's great. Not only in inside, but he's probably what I feel. Excuse me, traditionally a small forward, power forward, but he plays that. He can play point. He can bring the ball up. He can facilitate the offense, get guys involved. There's another Julius Randle is another guy who kind of fits that point forward. So it's somewhat of a common thing amongst the point forward term in this league. Oh, LeBron James, obviously, but it is somewhat of a in recent years, kind of common to have a kind of a point forward. The point center is the thing that we're gonna, I believe, start seeing more of. That's gonna be the new style of play as we, I think Nikola Jokic, his game is gonna be that influential that now moving forward you're gonna have, more point centers, you know, um, emerging in the NBA, and it's influenced the way that traditionally we've had, in most cases in past times, two point guards. Two, usually probably under 6'4", 6'3", point guards. You had a plethora of smaller point guards in the league that were, 6'5", 11, 5'10", even smaller, 5'9", 5'8". You had these, a plethora of guys who filled these point guard roles and had contributing roles on, or major contributing roles on NBA rosters. But when you look at this current recent years, with the emergence of the point center, the point forward, that's not the case. You do have your few guys, few smaller point guards who are in the NBA. You do still have that, it's a minority group. You still have a couple guys who are, smaller point guards on NBA rosters, but to my point is that it's not a plethora of them anymore. And most guys aren't really having, even if they're all are on NBA rosters, they're not really having much major roles on NBA rosters. When a lot of guys, and it's a lot of great smaller point guards, in recent years that aren't in the league, like Isaiah Thomas, Kemba Walker, Trey Burke, DJ Augustin. These are all guys that's been in the NBA, played well in the NBA, but the emergence of guys like the Nikola Jokic's and Zion Williamson's and the Brandon Ingram's, like these guys are, dominating the ball, at a way bigger position. You know what I'm saying? From you have a 6'11" guy in Nikola Jokic pretty much being your primary ball handler, secondary ball handler, with Jamal Murray being the point guard. This is a 6'4", 6'5", a point guard who's your ball handler. So this creates an incredible mismatch for most defenses when you have a 6'4", 6'5" point guard, and then you have another 6'11" point guard in Nikola Jokic. So even when you look at the Denver Nuggets, you had guys like Ish Smith, who's a smaller point guard, Reggie Jackson, who's smaller point guard but very athletic. not really get much minutes because they don't really their size kind of makes them obsolete when it comes to you know you know the ball handlers who are on their team, and Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Um, and so you know defenses, like even on other rosters, defenses, if you have a smaller point guard out there on the floor guarding a Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, it's a major mismatch. Major mismatch. It's a very major size mismatch, and it highly favors, you know, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. So I'm definitely, gonna, it's already been kind of been happening and seen with a lot of smaller point guards not really having roles on NBA teams, but I think it's gonna even be more prevalent moving forward. But it's not to say that these guys are just gonna be completely extinct, but because you got great smaller guards in the league like a Trey Young, but when you're talking about the elite guards in this league in the NBA now, they all are extraordinary in one or three areas. They're either extraordinary great scorers, extraordinary great uh, athletes, extraordinarily great passers and facilitators. They do one of those three things great, if not all three or two of the three or whatever. They do one of those three things great. And that's why they're on the NBA roster. So that's just what I really noticed talking about NBA in recent years. And then you might have, obviously you have your few minority of like smaller guards, who are in this league, who get minutes, like a Tyus Jones, who gets minutes and is one arguably the best backup guard, as they say. Like I think could start somewhere. Van Vliet, you know what I'm saying? It's still good of players that are of that like smaller point guard role out in this league, but like I said, it's not as prominent as past times. So yeah.